Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Happy Friday. Friday gets here much quicker than what we think. And we're going to be doing the fourth and final installment of Simplicity 9825. I'm very excited to be doing that. Very, very excited to be doing that. And we are literally going to dive into this. We are going to be diving in because guess what? We are almost done. We are almost done with this blazer, jacket, dress. In my case, I'm hoping that it is going to be a blazer. And for those that need a refresher, last week we did finish the lining, and what you are looking at right here on the inside is the lining. And we finished 2 sessions ago the majority of the jacket. And so now we are going to, before we put both the lining and the blazer together, we are going to attach, we're going to be attaching the collar piece, the under collar. So that is the last piece that we need to connect to the blazer before we connect them. So we've wrapped up on our last session at step 22, and now we are going to be on step 23. So we're going to get started. We're on step 23, and we are going to get started with this last step. So if you haven't already, you do want to interface your under collar or your upper collar, which is piece number 8. And then it tells you to clip the neck edge of the back lining to the stay stitching along the curve. So remember, we did stay stitching along the back piece of our lining. It is basically telling you to clip into that back lining piece, but don't go to, but not through the stay stitching. And that just gives you some flexibility as you are attaching your upper collar to your back lining piece. So that's what it wants you to do there. And then it says with right sides together, you are going to pin the upper collar to the neck edge of the front facing and lining. You're going to match the centers. You have small and large dots, so you're going to be matching those as well. And then we are going to stitch between the large dots. So literally we are doing with this upper collar the same thing that we did when we attached the under collar to the main fabric of the blazer, jacket, dress, whichever you are choosing. So we are going to be literally doing that same thing. So if you need a refresher, I will tell you to go back and look at it's going to be step 8. But let me see, does it tell you? No. Yeah, if you needed a refresher of how to attach that, I would tell you to go back to step 8, and it will tell you basically how to attach or where to attach it. So again, right sides together, and I'm going to attach mine, and then I will show you exactly what I have done. And before I do that, I'm just getting my pattern piece too to make sure. Hey, Nee. Thank you for joining. Tell the kids to get on. Tell the kids to join. Because I forgot to send them a reminder, especially since I was getting on late today. I definitely forgot to send them. Okay, let's see. And I'm just transferring over my markings. So that way I don't have any problems when I'm going to attach this. He said, LJ said, if I'm making anything for the Ravens, I will. Yes, I am. I am going to be, not tonight, but I will be making something for the Ravens this year. I definitely will be making something, and he might be getting something. No promises, no promises. He might be getting something. Okay, so I think I have transferred all of those markings over, and now I am attaching. So again, right sides together. And even for me, it is very helpful to and I'm going to probably use pins. Same thing on this side. Hey, Anthony. Thank you for joining. Yes, this is the blazer. This is the last and final part of the blazer. So it has taken us 4 times to finish this, 4 parts, but it's because it is fully lined. And we've been doing it 2.5, I mean, well, probably more like 2.5 sessions each time. So it is taking a little bit longer, but I feel really good about the fact that we're almost done. This is really it. Okay, so let's see. We are pinning the upper collar to the neck edge at the front facing and lining, matching the center to small dots to large dots, and placing the small dots at the shoulder seams. We're going to stitch between the large dots. And you know, again, this is where clipping that middle will be really helpful because it's going to help you stretch out that center back piece. And again, when you're clipping, you're going to clip 2, but not through your stay stitch. So I'm actually putting a couple of clips in. I did not have to do this when I did the under collar, but I do need to do it now because I need that stretch. Hey, Carm. Welcome, Black Sewing Network. I feel like I just literally turned my air conditioner on. Y'all know, anybody that knows me knows I do not turn my air conditioner on. But when you are like, I was on the go out in these streets, and it's you. I completely forgot that it's Preakness, so it is so many people outside in these streets. They are in these streets, literally. It's busy. I just need to mark the center of this, which I did not do. I guess that's good enough. Yeah, so I started sweating because I was like, turn my air on for a minute. And I'm just going to mark this too. All right, there we go. There we go. All right, now I'm going to, again, attach this. Excuse me. And again, we are doing right sides together. And I just want to make sure that I am pinning this the right way. Yes, it's right here. When you pin these collars on, it's like you got to really make sure you are pinning them correctly. Otherwise, it's not going to turn out right. Am I going to Preakness? I don't know. You know what? I don't know. Because part of me, I hate to say it, but I'm probably going to end up doing something. But I really just want to relax because I fly out again on Monday. And so part of me is just like, do I feel like it? I don't know. We're going to see. I got so much stuff to do. Part of me is like, I don't know if I feel like going. But it's so much stuff going on. And it's supposed to rain. That's the other thing. It's supposed to rain tonight, even though it's not raining now. Oh, it looks like it's raining at 4 a.m., which is better than right now because it was supposed to rain this evening. And then it's supposed to rain again, but it's not showing rain tomorrow. So maybe it's not raining. When I looked earlier today, it was looking like it was going to rain. So I was like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going. Hi, Gaynell. Welcome. Hi, Kay. All right. So I've marked the center of this, and that's going to give me a good point of making sure that this is centered. And as I mentioned earlier, I did make some cuts into the back of the lining back piece again, just so I can have more flexibility. But I feel like it's still not going to be enough. So the other thing I'm going to do is sometimes when you have your pattern pieces and they are like not significantly, but a lot larger, it's good to like just do another measurement and make sure, like, put your pattern piece onto it and make sure that it's not way larger than what it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to do that again because I feel like I have a lot of extra I feel like I have a lot of extra with this, but it's looking like it is pretty on point. It's not, I mean, it's a little bit of extra, but not anything significant. I'm just gonna put this. This is how you know I'm sweating, when I'm putting my hair up in a ponytail. My lovely ponytail that I love so much. Okay, I'm just gonna slim this down just a teeny. I mean, it's really nothing, but we are going to just cut this down. Hey, Sabrina. Hey, Jacqueline. You said it's been raining in Houston since yesterday. I know. I saw that storm. They had like a little clip on one of the social media. I think it was Instagram, where like it was like a tornado. It wasn't a tornado. It was a thunderstorm, but it could have been a tornado the way the wind was blowing. And oh my goodness, I saw that. It was looking bad. So hopefully, you know, y'all are safe down there, because it was not looking good in that video that I saw. It was looking like, it was not looking great. I was a little nervous. Yeah, this rain is like, it's going crazy around here, across the country. All right, so that is looking better. I mean, I'm cutting off, like, if you could see this, just little pieces, but really what it has to do with is the fact that my fabrics just have no stretch in them. And that just, that makes it, you have to do a little bit more manipulation to, to get it, the collar to fit. So I'm just taking off all this little bit of extra. Just to make sure, make it look just that much easier.
I'll help in any way I can. What can I do for you?
See, this is the technology. Nothing. Cancel.
Got it. I'll be so quiet.
Thank you. Can y'all hear that? This technology, I'm telling you, everybody gotta have a little sense of humor right now. Okay. I think we have got what we want. And let me just make sure I did not clip off any of my my markings, which I did a little bit, but just gonna remark them. This is the big dot, little, and little dot. And then same thing on this side. Hey, Aisha. All right, and so I'm so excited that we are going to be finishing this blazer today. We are down to the final steps. I'm telling you, we are. All right, so I have now recut this. I clipped my little clips, and I'm just going to clip a couple more little ones just because I feel like it's going to need it. I just cut down, passed through my stay stitch. So guess what I'm getting ready to do? It happens, but it's nothing that can't be fixed. So see what I did. I accidentally cut through down too much, but I'm going to take a piece of I'm going to take a piece of interfacing and I'm going to apply that. We're going to repair it. Okay. So I just started working on my, well, I've been kind of doing a little bit here and there on my Frocktails outfit. And so I just started sewing the pieces together. So I, my muslin, because I need a muslin for this. And I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm excited. It's kind of that thing where you just get to, which I haven't gotten to. Most of the sewing that I do, I sew on live, but this is like just a little different because I'm sewing just, by myself, just me. So I forget, sometimes you forget, how therapeutic and relaxing just sewing at a, slow pace can be. I'm a slow sewist anyway, as you all know. But I'm talking about slow, like watching TV. Oh, I'm sewing. Yeah, let me put a stitch in here. That kind of sewing. So I'm going to do a little bit more tonight because the goal is, because I have quite a bit of travel between now and when we actually go to Frocktails, which leaves me very little time to work through a muslin. All right. The other thing I think I'm going to do too is I think I'm going to do a quick little zigzag stitch right here just to make sure that this does not cause me problems later on down the road. So what I'm doing for those that might be just logging on, I was cutting a little clip around the neckline and I cut past my stay stitch just a little bit deeper, and I don't want it to cause me any problems. So I am going to just do a little zigzag stitch around that cut. I put a piece of interfacing on there, and again, I'm trying to like repair it to some extent. So I'm just going to, and then we're going to get back to the business at hand, which is lining up and attaching the upper collar. Ouch. What did I do? Oh, here it is. I was like, where is my... So yeah, I'm really excited. My Frocktails outfit is a combination of 3 patterns, all Vogue. And it's been a minute since I've actually sewn a Vogue pattern, and it just and this is an advanced pattern. The one that I'm working on now, it's an advanced pattern, and it reminds me of like, why is this an advanced pattern? Because it definitely assumes that you have some basic understanding of sewing. And I'll just give you an example. Like in the sleeve that I'm working on, it has horsehair. It does not tell you anything about how to put the horsehair in. In fact, it's not even a step on the instructions. It just shows you the picture that the horsehair is there. And in the very following step, it says, oh, and make sure you sew your stitch through the horsehair. So that tells you like, oh, I must need to add my horsehair in between steps 2 and 3 or whatever. And I'm like, ooh, luckily I know what to do here, but it just was a reminder of, how this pattern can be a little tricky or a little difficult for somebody who is a new sewist, because it's not giving you like the level of instruction that we're used to in our average and easy patterns where it tells you literally every single step that you need to be following. It's giving it to you. All right, I'm just putting these two pieces together. And I'm going to do a quick little small zigzag stitch. I'm making it really little. And wish me luck. Hopefully this will work the way I think it's supposed to work. Yep, there we go. It is working that way. Now let me go backwards. I'm going to just do it a couple of times back and forth. One more time for good measure. All right, there we go. That worked out perfectly. So for those that might want to see, this little part right here is where I have prepared that little cut that I put in there. This is the lining. It's inside the jacket. You are not going to really see this that much, but it was a mistake, so I wanted to fix it, and I didn't want any problems. Okay, so now, again, now that I've recut this piece, it's a little smaller than it was. We are now going to be taking, with right sides together, matching our notches, matching our dots. I believe this is right. Yes. Matching our notches, matching our dots. I am now pinning the upper lining onto the back, the facing and the back lining. Matching up again the notches, the dots, the center. This goes right here, yes. And I'm using pins because, again, I need to be able to pull and stretch this. So I am using pins to help make sure I don't lose, the clips don't come off as I'm trying to maneuver this. So I clip the two ends and then I'm lining the center. And then I'm going to be stretching it out. And again, that's where clipping into the back neck is helpful. And again, this was so much easier to do with the other fabric. This fabric is a faux suede, so it does not have nearly as much stretch. So it's harder to manipulate. But we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. Ouch. So anyone else doing a muslin to help them kind of work through their designing challenges for their Chicago Fractales. Anybody else working on a muslin? Let me see. Hi, Miss Tata. Uh-oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you in an area that's getting a lot of storms right now too? Hopefully you don't lose power. Okay. Aisha's doing a muslin. Kay's doing a muslin. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna post a little bit of what I can't wait till I get these sleeves up. I'm gonna post a little bit of it. I just grabbed a little bit of a video and I'm definitely gonna post it so y'all can see. Like, ooh, get you a little excited as I am about pulling this whole thing together. You said this lightning's scary. I can imagine. It's that, you know what, it's that time of the year. Like people forget because I feel like I feel like in like Texas, you know, the I'm not Atlanta. Well, even Atlanta, I feel like the last couple of years they've had more bad weather and in Texas and even in Atlanta than we typically will hear about in the news. I'm telling you, here before I left home, it rained here for the several days straight, and I was outside going for a walk before I left this week or last weekend, I guess I could say. And the water, I live close to the harbor, and the water was literally like, I'm gonna say an inch, maybe even less than an inch away from the top of the basically it was getting ready to just cover the ground. That's how high the water was. And it does flood down here from time to time. It definitely does. So it's not unusual for us to have that kind of weather. It definitely does do it. Now I'm just making sure this is right before I stitch this down. All right, let's see. All right, I think. Okay, here we go. I'm just making sure these dots are lined up because it will make a difference. You say you have not been outside. Since I moved from the home, the weather has been bad every year. Yeah, it is like, hey, Shamira. Yeah, the weather is. I lived in Oklahoma and Texas, and I remember the storms were not nice when I lived there, and I was much younger. All right, let me do the same thing on this side. Again, just making sure that I am lining this up right because what I don't want to do is take it out. I don't know why this thing ain't moving. feel like that's right. And I feel like that is right. All right, and I'm just going to check. This is the good thing about it. You can always look at what you did on the first one. Make sure you got it. You got it. Because this one turned out so good. All right, let's see. Let me just make sure. Okay, matching the center, the small and the large dots, and then placing the inner small dot at the shoulder seams. Yes, inner small dot at the shoulder seams. And this is the shoulder seam, that's the small dot, the shoulder seam. And inner small dot at the shoulder seam. Here we go. And this is going to be right here. All right, I think we are good to go. And now I am about to stitch. And again, we are stitching. So let me just show you what I did. So this is literally the same thing that we did. I think it was in step 1 of this sew along, where we right sides together, we are attaching the collar to this time to the lining. In step 1, we attach the collar to the outside fabric, the under collar to the outside fabric. This is the upper collar to the lining. And we have so we had to line up our center with the center seam. And then we have small and large dots. So this inner, where is it? Okay, here we go. There is a dot right here that lines with the shoulder seam. Same thing on this side. A dot that lines with the shoulder seams, and they do. And then there is a large dot right here and a large dot right here. And we are basically going to be stitching from this large dot up all the way across. And then we're finishing over at the other large dot. And we are stitching this at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we're just going to do again from large dot to large dot. So we're going to do that right now. And then that's the last step that we needed to do to finish the lining before we are attaching the lining. Let me just make sure. Okay, let's see. Stitch between the large dots, which I said at each end. And then it says you're going to pivot with the needle in the fabric at the inner corners. Trim the back of the neck seam between the shoulder seams. Clip the curves. And then we're going to press the seam open. And let me see. With right sides together, pin the upper collar to the under collar. Matching the center, small dots, and large. Okay, that's the next step. Okay, so first things first, let us stitch this 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we are stitching this from the large dot to on one side to the other large dot on the other side. And again, take your time. Make sure you are, and let me go back to my regular 2.5. And let me make sure you can see that. You can see that, and you can see that. Look at that. Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, and the other thing is 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, if I didn't already say that. And gets a little tricky in these corners. So just again, take your time. And make sure you do your pivoting, and make sure there's no no bunching underneath. And stretch. Hi, Miss Fab, so fabuloso. Tell me what name you go by so I can make sure I say that, or is it your YouTube name? Whichever you prefer. I just want to make sure I say it right. And you probably told me this last week because I remember you were on. So I apologize that I don't remember. And if you are working on this, please make sure you tag me. I'd love to see what you're working on. I have seen a couple already in progress and they look really good. I didn't ask for permission yet, but if you're on, I do want to post it both on my YouTube because I just love seeing all the different ways that people are making this, the fabrics that they're using. Like everybody's looks so different. And no pressure. I know everybody does not feel comfortable or want their stuff like blasted, but they look great. Everyone that has sent it to me in my inbox, on Facebook, on IG, they all look really good. So I'm excited that we are finishing this. I'm still hopeful that this is going to be a dress for me. I tried it on, I put the lining in, kind of inserted it in and tried it on a little bit. And the only thing that I'm worried about is that, because of what we have to do it to the bottom of the lining, you have to do like a little bit of a tuck up. And I'm worried that it's going to be a little bit shorter than I want it to be, but we'll see. I still have faith in the process. I do. So we will see. We will see. Diva. Okay. Is it Diva or Divya? Divya. That's probably what it is. So you say you are finishing up your lining. Yay. Okay. Well, I can't wait to, see it. And if you run into anything, please don't hesitate to reach out because I'm just excited. I'm excited for you to finish it. And all right, let's see. All right, now here we go. Let me bring this down. And this is that other little corner where I gotta make sure. This is where I'm getting ready to do my little pivot. And this is that little tricky part where the reason why kind of cutting those slits in the back of your back lining are helpful, because they let you do that little stretching that you need to do to get that fit that you want. All right, I feel like we're gonna be good to go. I think we're gonna see when we turn this right side out. Ooh. All right, there we go. All right, I think this is it. All right, I think we have done it, and let me just, okay, that looks so good. And that looks so good. Okay, let me just show this to you. And then the only thing is this little piece right here. I'm about to just re-stitch this piece because I can see where it's not. So where you let me just show this to you, Josh, just so you can see what I'm doing. Well, you probably can't. I'm just going to tell you. Let me show it to you from this side. So where these two pieces of fabric meet, the under collar meets the, this is actually the facing piece. In that corner, you had a part where when you put the facing on, you did a reinforcement stitch and you clip down. And when you do that clip down, that is literally the part that fits this corner. It fits this corner piece, or the inner corner of your under facing, of your upper facing in this case. And the same thing is true. Well, what's happening is, because I didn't bring my stitch down far enough, where I cut in is still exposed. It's like right on that line. So I am going to just bring that stitch over just a little bit so that it's probably going to be okay in the grand scheme of things, but I don't want any problems. So I am going to just, if you could see this line right here, I'm going to just bring it down just a teeny bit right at that curve so that it is not, it's not a weak spot, I guess is the best way I like to describe it. So that's going to take me like 2 seconds to just do that little piece again. Well, maybe a little bit more than 2 seconds, because I'm actually going to take out this stitch right here. I'm going to take this out. And it's so funny because as I'm looking at it, it looks like I moved the fabric, and that's why it went down too low right there. So we're going to move it up. Hi, Faith. Hey, Julian. So what I'm actually going to do, I think, which will make it easier, is I'm just going to follow that reinforcement, excuse me, that reinforcement stitch that we did. I'm going to just follow that exactly, because that's going to get me in exactly where I need to be. It's going to get me exactly where I need to be. I'm just going to pull it up. go. And now I'm going to move this out just like that. Here we go. And now I'm going to stitch this back. And we should be good to go from there. The one thing that I will say that, you know, when I make this again, because I probably will make it again, I will probably make, now that I know how the construction goes, I will probably make the lining and the outside, the fabric pieces that are duplicative. I will probably do them both at the same time, because I think it's easier when you do, like, you know, as we're putting each piece of the fabric piece together, that we also put the lining piece together at the same time, especially if you're going to follow exactly the same steps. I feel like that seems like it would be a time saver to do it that way. Because like even with this, putting this under, you know, this upper collar on, like we literally followed all these steps already 3 weeks ago. And now we got to remember, like, oh, this is what we did, so that we can do it all again. All right. And now I am going to pivot. Here we go. Look at that. I feel like this is going to be perfect. All right, that's so much better. I can already see that it's better. It's exactly what I want it to be. And you could see that you couldn't see it before, but there was like a little teeny, what I felt like was going to be a hole. I could probably push my finger through it. And now it's not there. It is perfect. Okay, so now the next step is that we are going to take our lining piece and our facing. So our entire 2 jackets that we basically put together. We did the entire lining. We did the facing a couple weeks ago. And with right sides together, we're going to pin the upper collar to the under collar. So the upper collar is what we attach to the lining. That's what we just did. And the under collar is what we have attached to our outside fabric that we did a couple weeks ago. So this is the under collar and this is the upper collar. So we're going to put them right sides together. We're going to pin the upper collar to the under collar, matching the centers, the small dots. And then we are going to, it says turn the neck seam allowances down. And it wants us to hand baste the outer edges of the upper and under collar together between the large dots. So I don't want to hand baste. I'm going to experiment really quickly because I feel like we can baste it on the sewing machine, but we're going to do it together. But for right now, things first is right sides together. We are going to pin our collar, upper collar and under collar together. So we're going to do that first. And I'm going to use pins instead of clips this time around as well. So I'm going to pin the outsides of these first, and then I'm going to match the centers, and then we will, but they should be exactly the same because they are all cut. Well, no, you do have a separate pattern piece for your under collar. So, but they should match. Mine are matching just from me holding it. I can tell that they're matching pretty well. Hey, Anna, welcome. So for those that are just joining, we are working on our last step of this Simplicity 9825. Let me just show you. Here it is, our last step. And we have been working on this. This is our fourth week, our fourth and final week. It is a fully lined dress, blazer, jacket. You know, I think it could be either one of those options, depending on the length, the fabric that you are choosing to use. So what we're doing right now is we are starting to do the final steps of construction, which are to put together the lining to the outside fabric. And we're starting to do that by pinning the upper and the under collar together. And so I've just pinned them. And what it's telling us in the instructions is to baste stitch basically from this large dot up and across the top, and then back down to this other large dot. And let me just point this way so you can see this as well. Again, baste stitching from this large dot over here, up, across the top, and then back down to this other large dot. And it tells us to hand baste them, but I'm going to use my sewing machine. Let's see. And then it says stitch as basted from center back to large dot, overlapping a few stitches at the center back. Okay, so then it is telling us to stitch as basted. Okay, so it's telling us to basically hand baste it together. And I believe the reason why it's saying that is it's saying basically baste it first, hand stitch it together first, then go to the sewing machine and use your basting stitch as a guide to do the exact same stitch, because it says stitch as basted. So I'm going to basically stitch this together. The other thing to be mindful of is that you may need to do some manipulation to get your under collar and upper collar to fit together perfectly. Like, I'll give you an example. I can see right here that there's like a little extra fabric. So when I get to that part, I'm going to just stretch it out a little bit so it lays, so that I will be able to, and again, there's just like a little bit of extra right here. So I'm going to put a pin in that. And then when I get to that section, I'm going to pull a little bit just to get it to lay. But you may have some more manipulation that you need to do to get it to lay down. I'm fortunate that I don't have a lot. And the stretchier your fabric is, the less manipulation, or the easier I will say that it will be to manipulate. I'm using complete woven fabric that is really, although, yeah, it has very little stretch to it. So anyway, with that said, I'm gonna get started. We are going to put this stitch together around, again, stitching the upper collar to the upper collar to the under collar. And it's basically stitching from one large dot around to the other. They do recommend that you base stitch first and then stitch on top of that base stitch. And your seam allowance is, again, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So here we go. We are doing that right now. And I'm so excited because we are so close. So close. And I'm just pivoting. Hi, Renee, welcome. I'm pivoting when I get to the corner. Again, making sure that my raw edges are even. And again, this is one of the reasons why they recommend that you base stitch, so that you know your fabric is staying aligned. you don't have those types of, issues. And if you're using a really heavy fabric, it's easy for it to like be pulled because it's heavy. So all of these steps really help you to have a nice, clean, clean stitch. So far, I'm doing good. I'm not having any of those problems, but I'm just making you aware of them just in case you are experiencing those things. And I forgot to take that needle out. Thank goodness it did not cause me any problems. All right, I'm getting to this other end. And now I'm about to do my last pivot down to the other large dot. And again, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is what we're working with here. There we go. And we have now stitched our upper to our under. Now you still may be doing some, especially if you put a base stitch in. I did not do the basting stitch. I just stitched it. I pinned it really good and I stitched it all. But that is the next step. You have now officially attached your upper collar to your under collar, and now it is telling us to the other thing, the other reason why it did tell you to base stitch, which I didn't do this, but I want to explain it just in case. The reason why it does want you to do an initial base stitch too is because it is telling us to do, when you are doing your final stitch, it's telling you to start at the center and go out. So you're going to, if you start the center and you go to the right, you're going to go this way and down. And then the same thing when you go to the left. And that just helps to make sure that it is not pulling in one direction or the other. And then it does tell you to do a little bit of overlap in the middle. So I want to mention that to you as well, in terms of another reason why it is giving you the instruction of, it's telling you to hand based. You could definitely do a machine based, and then follow that second step of starting in the center, kind of overlapping a little bit, going to the right, and then starting in the center and going to the left. And then it's telling us to trim all this seam. And so I am going to do that because I think it will be bulky. So I am going to trim the seam. Let me see. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to trim this a little bit, because when we turn this right sides, and then I'm going to also kind of clip the corner a little bit too. We don't want any problems. We don't want any kind of bulkiness or anything. Ooh. There we go. And I'm just going to cut a little bit on this side too. Being extra careful, considering I don't want any more problems. And you know what the good news is? That little part that I had cut into, It's in my seam allowance, so it's not even going to show. Look, let me just show y'all the little accident that I fixed. It is in the seam allowance. So it will not even show, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so we have finished step 24, and now we're to step 25. So step 25 says for us to turn the collar to the outside between the lining and the jacket. So I am reaching my hand inside of here, and I am taking the collar that we just stitched together, and I am turning it to the outside. It says turn to the outside between the lining and the jacket, turning up the neck seam allowance. Make sure. Okay. Turning up the neck seam allowance, and then it says turn up the lapel and the lapel facing. Okay, so I have turned. Let me just show you. So this is, my hand is on the inside. You cannot see it, but I guess you can a little bit. Here it is. So I'm pulling this, my collar, to the inside. This is it. This is my collar piece. But then it also tells us, so once I have that kind of turned into the inside, it is telling us to take the, turning up the neck seam allowance. So that would be, once you turn the collar to the inside, you are left with the neck seam allowance on both the lining and the actual jacket fabric or the blazer fabric, whichever you're making. So I'm lining those up, those pieces up, and it is saying, let's see, pin the front facing to the jacket. All right, let me start over. Turn the collar to the outside between the lining and the jacket. And again, that's just pushing it into the middle. And then turn up the neck seam allowance, which is what happens when you push that collar down. The neck seam allowance is what's going to stick out. And I'm just going to put some clips here just to line those pieces up for myself. I'm just clipping them again so that they can stay together. And I'm just doing that along the neck. All right, okay, so it says turn up the lapel and the lapel facing. So that's going to be these pieces. So you have the lapel facing and the lapel. So it's saying to turn those pieces up. So it looks like we're starting to kind of match up these pieces. Again, I am just going to clip them together. Because it makes it easier for me. And doing the same thing on the other side. And you'll know it because it's just those two little pointy pieces on both your lining and your facing. So I'm just clipping those together. Ouch. Making sure they're all lined up, and I'm clipping them so that they can stay together. I find that it's probably, especially if you have to stretch something, to use a pin to hold it together as opposed to a clip. Okay. So then it says pin the front facing to the jacket, matching the small and large dots. And then stitch from the large dot to the inner edge of the facing on the lower edge. Okay, so it looks like, let me just push this in. So if you're looking at your, and I guess my dot is on the other side, so let me turn it around here so you can see. So it's saying for us to pin the front facing to the jacket. So this is the front facing, this piece right here. And this is my jacket. It's telling us to kind of pin those pieces together, the front facing to the jacket. And then it's saying for us to stitch. There is a dot right here. So it's telling us to stitch from this dot up and down and then all the way down to, it looks like, let me see, pin the front matching the small and large dot, stitch from the large dot to the inner edge of the facing on the lower edge. I believe they want us to make sure that's right. I believe we are stitching down to this part, but I'm about to get my pattern piece and match it up just to make sure that that is what we are stitching. But we're definitely starting up here. There is a dot right here, and you are starting here. You're going up to the top of your lapel. Again, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, all the way down. Again, attaching your lining to the your fabric to the facing, to the front facing. And then I need to tell you, I believe we're going across, but let me make sure that we are going across. I'm going to tell you in 1 second. How far we are going across. Large dot to the inner edge of the facing on the lower edge. Easing front and lapel facing to fit. Being careful not to catch the collar. So that's the other thing. When you are stitching up here, you want to make sure that you do not get your collar. It should be facing down. So like, for example, when I'm feeling, I know this is the edge of my collar, but I'm going to be stitching beginning right here. So I need to make sure that my collar does not get stitched into it. You want to make sure that you push it over to the side or you move it so that it is not in the way of where you are stitching. So make sure you do not get your collar caught. All right, let me tell you where you are going to be stopping. Oh, this is the back, so not that piece. This is the front and side, not that piece. And front lining. Okay, there's nothing on here. And this is the front. Make sure there's nothing down here. And let me just see. So this is my front. That's my front lining. And let me just see my front facing. Here we go. I think this is it. Front facing, okay. Hey, Lala. Hi, Michelle. Welcome. Okay, so here is the bottom dot on the facing. So it says stitch from the large dot to the inner edge of the facing on the lower edge. Inner edge of the facing on the lower edge. Easing front and lapel facing to fit, not to catch the collar at the large dot. Okay, we got that. Back stitch at the end. Okay. So we are going to basically stitch this across till we get to the end of the facing. When I look at the picture, that is what it appears to be doing, which is, again, you're going to bring this all the way down, pivot at the corner, and you're going to come all the way across. When you are stitching, you will know that, just to show you from the fabric side, you have this piece that is longer. This piece is longer than your facing piece. That is supposed to be that way, but I just want to remind you of that. If you were not aware, you do have this little cutout piece, and that is normal. It's on both sides. So we're going to start with that. Again, the main thing to remember when you are stitching this is to not get your collar caught in there when you start stitching at the top, because you're starting by this dot and it is very close to your collar. So even if you have to, it might be better to just like pin it or move it over to the side so you do not accidentally, like I'm actually going to pull mine out while I stitched it in just that part, because I don't see a way for it not to get stuck, not to get caught in there. Otherwise it will be caught in there. So the first thing is, I would definitely recommend, which is what I'm about to do right now, is to clip it before you start to stitch it, to ensure that it's all lined up. So that is what I'm about to do. Hey, Shannon. You start sewing yet? Are you coming to, you probably haven't seen it yet. I'm going to send you the information for the Baltimore Fractales so you can come if you didn't see it already. I'm so glad you joined, because I would have probably forgot to send it to you. So now I'm remembering. Let me make a note for myself. As soon as I finish this live, I'm sending it to you. And you got enough time too to make yourself something. You say, am I going to make your dress? No, you're going to make your dress. You are going to make your dress. I'll help you though. I will help you. Yes, I will. All right, let me just make sure this thing is lined up right. You said it's a date. Okay, all right. Well, we got to start planning now, because you know how my schedule is crazy. But I will definitely help you. Okay. And I'm clipping this, just making sure I'm having everything lined up. So when I start sewing, I'll have no problems. Okay. All right, here we go. Wish me luck. Feel like I got it all pinned up. I'm doing one side and then we're going to do the other side. Hi, Tiffany. You say you hope this message goes through. I do see it says the pattern that I did for my vacation. Let me see. Miss Tata, I'm trying to see if you sent another message. So the only message that I see is, I hope this message goes through, the pattern that I did for my vacation. Tell me, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think which pattern I did because I've made several things for vacation. Can you tag me in it if I posted it? Or if you give me some description, that will help me know which pattern you might be talking about. All right, and then I'm just going to clip this more towards the bottom also. And I don't know why, but I feel like this. All right, well, we'll figure it out. I feel like what I was going to say is I feel like the bottom of this facing is supposed to line up with the bottom of the. So your actual fabric, as you can see, like here, there's like a little area that kind of is shorter and then it's longer. And I feel like the bottom of the facing is supposed to line up with the bottom of that shorter part and not supposed to come all the way down to the longer part. But mine does. And just before I stitch it together, I just want to make sure there's nothing else that I should be doing. In the front jacket, trim seam, stitch seam allowances of facing and lining to jacket together at neck edge. All right, we didn't get to that. Okay. All right, I'm gonna stitch this and we'll go from there. But I have a gut feeling that my facing is probably a little bit too long. And as you all remember, we did cut like an inch off of the back facing pieces, but we did not cut an inch off of any of the other pieces. And let me just make sure we weren't supposed to cut an inch off of any of the other pieces. Because a part of me feels like the lining and facing should be shorter than the actual fabric, but it only told us to cut it on one part. So I'm just going back to that part to make sure that we were not supposed to cut it on another part. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Listen to this. Listen to this. it says, so this is step 20. It says cut 1 inch from the lower edge of the back 6, the side front, and the side back lining sections, which I think we did that. So this is the back. This is the back right here. These two pieces are the back, which we cut the inch from. And then it says the side front, which will be these pieces. And then it says, I'm sorry, side, front, and side, back. So this is the side back, and then this is the side front pieces. So we did not cut an inch from the side front piece. We did cut an inch from the side back, and the back piece and then that only leaves us with the facing. So now let me go back and look at the facing piece, because the facing, the side front, and the side back are all the same length. The facing, the back, the side front, the side back. Okay, so let me just explain this one piece just from another blazer that I have made before. You said, I've come to a sewing block. The pattern instruction's been confusing me lately. Oh yeah, no, I understand. It does, you know what? It does take some time to like, even as you see, as I'm going through this, and part of the reason why I'm doing this on live is because as even when you've been, and I've only been sewing for a couple of years, so I find sometimes it takes a minute it requires you to like read and reread it. And then, like I said, sometimes you have to phone a friend so they can kind of help you like, hey, how do you understand this? But that definitely happens. When I was working on my frocktails, my muslin, you know, I called Carmen. I was like, hey, you know, I ran into this kind of block and I would just wanted to, I thought I figured it out. And I was like, let me call somebody and find out that does this thing all the time. So it definitely happens. Okay. So when I made a blazer in the past, the lining piece is shorter than the actual fabric piece. And part of the reason for that is that the fabric, when you put them all together, the fabric folds under at the bottom, usually about an inch, it folds under. And so in order for that fold under to happen, that lining piece needs to be usually about an inch shorter. And the instructions for how you get to that inch shorter vary greatly. Sometimes you just have a separate pattern piece that you have to cut for the lining pieces, which looks exactly the same, it's just an inch shorter. Sometimes you're cutting the fabric and the lining in one pattern piece, and then later in the instructions, like they do in these instructions, they will tell you to cut an inch off. And so what they're telling us to do is to basically cut an inch off of these back pieces. So the challenge that we have right now is that we have that the facing, that this whole back piece needs to be the same length. It needs to be the same length. And so anything that we cut off of this lining piece, we need to cut it off all the way across the board. It needs to be cut off, you know, across the board, it needs to be cut. And so before we start stitching the whole outside together, we need to make a decision. Are we cutting some piece of this, of our facing and our lining piece? So before I do that, which I'm leaning towards the answer is yes, just because of looking at the instructions, I can see where the pattern piece, the lining is shorter than the actual fabric. I can see that in these instructions. I can see that here, this is the lining, this is the fabric. I can see that the fabric is longer than the lining, probably by an inch, which is what it told us to cut before. So the only other thing I'm about to look at really quickly is the facing piece. I'm sorry. Yes, the facing piece was a separate piece, and it did not have us cut. So this is the facing piece that we use. It's a separate piece, and it did not require us to cut any part of it. And so because it's not telling us to cut that facing piece, I'm hesitant to cut it now because it's not telling us to cut it. Let me see. I'm just looking to make sure I didn't miss a step where it tells us to do something with that facing. It does not. It doesn't tell us to do anything with that facing anywhere. So I think we're not going to cut it, because guess what? A cut is permanent. So we're not going to cut it. And if we start to get to the end, or we start to put it together and we see that we need to do something, we'll make an adjustment. But for right now, we're not going to cut it. That's what we're not going to do. So I'm going to, now that I've clipped this pretty much together, I am going to, because it's not a lot, but it's about an inch. That's exactly what it is. It's about an inch. All right, I'm going to stitch from the side, and I'm not going to go across the bottom for right now. I'm just going to do from the side all the way to the top, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. All right, here we go. Thank y'all for hanging in there with me as we figure this out. We're doing this together. We're working through this together. If you are doing this from home and not in real time and you have questions, drop them in the chat, because the good news about this is that we are figuring it out. I keep saying I need to do this. I need to put my table on this, and I have not. So again, if you didn't already, make sure that you move your, this is just a reminder, move your collar out the way so that when you are stitching, you do not catch your collar in there. We are also doing 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is what we're doing. And again, I'm just making sure that I start right at that dot, and that my collar is not in there. And okay, can you see? You can see. Okay, here we go. 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, starting at the large dot, making sure my and I'm going to pivot. And I'm pivoting again. You said hard, make sure it hurt. Let me see. Oh no, look, we are all the team. I'm sure, look, if you are a part of Black Sewing Network, that's what we're here for. Like, trust me, like I will in a heartbeat. In fact, look, Shamira, I'm about to bring you up so I can ask you about this. Can you get on the screen, Shamira? So I can show you this and ask for your advice. Tell me if you can. If you can't, or you don't even have to get on camera. You can just get on and look and give me your feedback. So again, just making sure that my raw edges are lined up, just so I am. Here we go. I'll tell you, that's my favorite part about Black Sewing Network. I try things that I've never tried before because I know in the end there's gonna be somebody that I can call and be like, I need help. Let me see. Oh, you said this weather just won't let you be great. Okay, you said give you a second. Okay, thank you. All right, so Shamira's gonna hop on and we're gonna ask her a question because she's made some blazers and she can affirm or correct and direct us. So again, we do it so you don't have to do it when you do it. So let me just show you what I've done really quick. So there is a dot right here that is right by the lapel. It's telling us to basically at 5/8 of an inch, and I do need to still go. I didn't go down far enough because I can feel like a little hole there, so I'm going to correct that. But basically, you're going to stitch from this dot all the way up, and then you're going to come all the way down. And the question that we have for Shamir, who has made other blazers, is should we be cutting our lining piece 1 inch across, basically to align with this part right here, this shorter part, or should we just leave it long as is? So that's our question. And so until we figure that part out, we cannot really, let me turn it on this side, which is what it's telling us to do, is to basically stitch across this bottom piece. But we want to make sure that before we stitch it across, that we know what we should be doing with this piece right here, so that we don't have to take it out, because who wants to take it out? Who wants to take it out? I don't. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, we're going to do the other side exactly the same way. Just starting, we're going to first of all line them up, clip or pin it to line the facing and the fabric together. Start at the dot, come up, and then we're going to stitch all the way down. And we're only going to go to the bottom. We're not going to do the cross piece yet until we figure that part out. And then again, just as a reminder, make sure that when you are starting your stitch by the large dot, that you do not stitch in your, what do you call it? Your collar, because that won't look good. That will not look good. And I'm just fixing this one piece on mine, because I did not go all the way down to the dot, because why? I was afraid that I will stitch my collar in. All right, I feel like it's good to go. Okay, she said, I'm ready. Okay, here we go. Look at that. Except, okay. So for those that are on Facebook or YouTube, you will be able to hear Shamira. You won't be able to see her, but I'm about to ask her some questions about what we should do in terms of the next step. So first of all, thank you, girl, for getting on. Last minute. Oh, I can't hear you. Let me see. How do I turn the sound on? I might have my sound turned down. Nope.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay, perfect. Okay, so you've made a lot of blazers. I've seen them. I've been on your social media. So the challenge or the question that I have is that, I've made a blazer before, and when I made the blazer before, the lining piece was shorter than the fabric piece. And so on this particular blazer, so the way that they directed us to do it, because the linings, all of the facing linings and the fabric pieces, they had basically one pattern piece. So they're the same length. And then when we were constructing it, there was a step where they told us to cut 1 inch from the lower edge of the back, the side front. But they don't tell us to do it to the facing piece. And right now, so we did end up cutting that inch off. And when we cut the inch off, it basically, so what you're looking at is you're looking at the inside. This is the lining piece. So this is I'm not tall enough to tell you, but, oh, you know what? I can put it on this dress form. Here we go. Yes, okay, here we go. All right, can you see? Oh, so you can see this. Okay, good. So, oh Lord, help us. Okay, so basically, we cut 1 inch off of the back pieces, which was 2, the side, back, and that's really it. I did not cut 1 inch off of the front side, even though it told us to do that. But I feel like it lines up. So I guess this is my question. My question to you is, should we be cutting it? You know what? Now that I have it on here, I almost feel like it is 1 inch shorter.
The facing?
I feel like it is. It didn't look like it when I had it laying flat. But now that I have it on this dress form, I can see that it's longer.
Okay, yeah. So the lining should be
Shorter.
The outside.
Yeah, you know what it is. I'm looking at it now. I can see, because this is my fabric and this is my lining and facing. So it is shorter.
Yeah, sometimes the facing piece is shorter than the rest of it, but it looks like yours is all the same.
And you know what? So then the other part that got me a little confused is because on the front, there is also this piece where it's like shorter right here. It's like a little part that is, and this was the pattern piece for the front, the front piece. So the front piece had this little teeny part that was just like, just a little short. It was like a little cutout of it. And I don't really know why that piece was there. This was like a trust the process kind of moment for me. Let me see.
Usually is a little bit shorter, but it's usually both pieces are, so it would normally be both sides would have that cut out.
Yeah, but well, so both sides do actually have it. Let me just, I'm gonna put it over here. So both sides do have this. So you know what I think? I'm sorry, you know what it is? I think it is because
when you stitch it up, it'll probably line up.
I think it's gonna line up. Because the other thing I'm thinking about is that this has, it has buttons on it, but that might not have anything to do with it because there's no other piece. I was thinking that maybe this is folding in, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's, I was thinking that this was gonna be folded in, but I don't think that's gonna actually be the case because.
So usually that piece, let's see, so I'm trying to show you on this jacket, but it's because the lining isn't sealed up. So usually, can you see here's
Yes.
This is my facing. So usually this is shorter so that when you, after you do your lapel, across here, and then flip it under.
Right.
That's how you determine your hem. So it'll give you a hem all the way around.
All the way around. So you think that this little piece being short right here is just going to, because I know that this flips underneath here. I know it's going to flip. That part I know.
Yes.
I think it's, you know what I think? I'm not cutting anything else. I think
I don't think you should cut it. You should stitch it up first. And it should line up like that. Lining piece should automatically be a little bit shorter than your front.
My front. And I do think it is. Now that I've put it on the dress form, I can see that it's longer.
It looks like it's gonna work.
Yeah, I think it is gonna work. I was nervous about it because it didn't look like it was lining up. I mean, it looked like it was the same length, but as I'm just putting it on here, I can see all the way around that it is shorter. I mean, just from it, it is at least an inch. It's probably 1.5 inches shorter.
Right. You don't want your, like, traditionally you would have the facing and the outside be the same fabric like mine is. They're both wool.
Yeah.
You don't want lining to be visible here. So that's why it starts off short so that when you flip it, then you have
your piece, right, that's folded underneath. Right. Okay. No, I feel like just even putting it on this dress form and kind of talking talking through it with you and reaffirming the fact that the lining and facing is supposed to be shorter than the fabric. Yes. Okay, that makes me feel so much better. Okay, so we are not gonna cut. We're gonna trust the process.
Don't cut it anymore. I think it looks like it's right. So once you stitch that lapel up, those two, that short hem and the front of it should line up because it should be an inch difference, right?
Right.
And you're gonna stitch it up, and like you said, you're gonna flip it under, and then that's gonna create your hem line all the way around for you.
And can I ask you one other question? So this, while we have you, we're going to access like all your knowledge. There is this step that says that. So I feel like you might be able to see it. I'm going to show you the picture really. So right here is telling us to, stitch up and around and all the way down. And it's telling us to stitch across the facing piece. And so basically we're stitching across it but we're going to leave this longer piece just hanging out there.
So that's going to flip under. So you'll stitch it across here. Let me see. So you'll stitch it across here, and then you'll flip it under to create the hem.
So don't worry about the fact that it's like hanging lower, because you're saying that when I flip it on the other side, it's gonna just fold up. It's gonna become my, so even though because I'm pretty much, I mean, and I just want to make sure like that when I'm stitching this piece, it's easier to show you on this picture. Yeah. When I'm stitching this piece, I'm going to be stitching over the fabric. So this is the facing, and on the other, so this piece right here is representing the facing and the fabric. Yes. And when I stitch across, it's going to be stitching across a part of this side back.
So that's inside out, or that's right sides together.
That's right. Yes.
Just the facing bit, and then you're gonna flip your jacket right sides out.
Yes.
And like
it's just going. You're saying that it doesn't matter. It's going to fold it.
It's gonna fold. So this is my jacket. I can't flip it all the way inside out, but this is it inside out. Here is my like facing.
So that's that. You're saying that's that piece that would have been.
So what your instructions are having you do is where I have mine folded. You stitch it there. Then when you turn it back right sides out, this will be sealed up, which I just glued mine together. And then you'll have this extra hanging to make it meet the line that you just created.
Okay.
Have you done this? You haven't done the sleeve yet.
I have not. But I think I know what you're saying. I think this is like one of those trust the process moments of like, it's going to work out. It's going to fold under. And I think because I can't visually see how it's going to work, I think that's the part where I'm hesitant.
Kind of like, this is a stretch, but like a waistband. You just do those regular like rectangle waistbands. In the corner where it's like where the latches go, you flip it together, right side together, stick it down, and you turn it back inside out, and then it'll have that natural line with like seam allowance on the side. That's basically
what this is. Okay. No, that makes me feel better. I feel like, I feel good about it. All right, we are not cutting.
Don't cut it. You don't want to stitch it. You don't want to stitch. I mean, sometimes you can like bag your lining, and that's when you would stitch it all the way around and turn it inside out the arm or something.
Yes.
But the way you do it, they're probably gonna have you hand stitch.
Yes, that's what they want us to do.
That's why I just glue mine.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that way, but that is what they want us to do. They want us to leave that little bottom piece open, flip it, and then hand stitch it. Yeah. But I don't like that way. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna cheat. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Shamira. You have saved us some time and some use of our seam ripper, or probably my dress probably would have turned into a jacket had I cut that inch off. So I'm glad that we did not do that. So we are not, for the record, thank you, Shamira, we are not cutting. We are going to stitch across that bottom, and then we're going to do the other side. So thank you. I appreciate you. I don't know how to take, oh, good. You know how to get off, because I was like, I don't know how to take you off. Okay, good. All right. So now we know, for those that are on YouTube and Facebook, Shamira did help us. Basically, we are trusting the process. We are going to, here we go. I'm going to show you for our for our facing side, we're going to stitch across the bottom of this facing piece. And we're going to go, let me see what it says. It says for us to go, basically, we are going right to the end right before you get to the seam of your facing. So we're going to just stitch right across till we get to this end of the facing. The only thing I will tell you is that you do want to make sure, again, because y'all saw when I put it on the dress form, the back does hang lower, and you just want to make sure that it does hang. It's not, it looks even, but it's not. It is not even. So you want to make sure that you have that before you stitch it across. So I am literally right now just making sure that that was the part that I was really nervous about. All right, I'm gonna stitch this across, but I am gonna wait to do it. I'm gonna stitch the other side first, doing the same thing that we just did on the side one. So I'm lining up my edges. I'm gonna stitch from the dot on my lapel and then go all the way down the side. So I'm going to clip those together, lining my raw edges. Hi, Leangela. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Hi, Aura Divin. Welcome. I appreciate you joining. And thank you again to Shamira for hopping on and giving us some advice. We greatly appreciate it. So for those that are joining, we are doing our last part to this dress, blazer, jacket, and that involves us basically stitching it together. And see, I love this because this right here is lining up the way that I want it to line up. It's just doing everything it's supposed to do. And I'm just going to show you this because I feel like this might be, just might be a little bit. It's looking good on this side. This is the hardest part, making sure all this stuff, all of these, the fabrics line up for me. This is probably the hardest piece, which it shouldn't be, but I want to be so careful because I think of all the things. I do not want to use my seam ripper unnecessarily, so I'm trying to take my time and make sure I really have it lined up. I mean, using a seam ripper is not the worst thing in the world, but if we don't have to, then we don't have to, and that would be great. All right, I think I got it. I think it's looking better. Okay. All right, I got it all clipped on this side, and now I am again starting where the dot is. I am moving my collar out of the way just to make sure I do not accidentally stitch over it. I'm starting at the dot here, going up, pivoting, coming down, and stitching all the way to the end. And let me go get my I keep saying I'm gonna put this on. I have mixed feelings about it. I have put it on and I like it, and then I don't like it and I take it off because I like the flexibility. But when you have something big like this, it does help to have it. All right, here we go. Again, I'm just double checking to make sure. That I do not have my collar in there. Okay, here we go. Again, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, here we go. I think we're good. I think we are good to go. And all right. I think what I'm going to do too, I think that might be helpful, is to do like a little mini video just on turning this. Once we're finished, just because I think it'll be helpful for somebody who is watching this, or when you get to this part, for those that are sewing and might be trying to figure it out. But I feel like that might have been a little bit confusing, just the way we talked about it and walked through the process. if you're not doing it in real time, when you get to this part, you might be like, what in the world am I supposed to do here? And so just to make it easier and simpler, I should say, that might be helpful. As much as I love blazers, I need to make more so I can really just solidify these steps, because I don't make them all that often. And that's why I feel like sometimes it's like making it for the first time again when I do make it. But I love them so much. All right. Okay, so we have stitched down, and now we got to do the next step, which is to stitch across. So we are going to stitch across, and if we got to take it out, we got to take it out, but I think we're going to be good to go. So we are literally going across the bottom of the facing till we get to right to the edge, or right to the, let me just show you on this picture because it'll be easier. But we are basically stitching, when we get to that bottom, we're going to just go right before we get to the seam. We're going to stitch across until right before we get to the seam. So we just came on both sides, we've come down the bottom, and now we're going to stitch right across until we get to the seam. And I think we are. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Just going across because we've already stitched. We've already stitched the down the side. Okay. You can see that that's what it looks like on that side. And here is what it looks like on the facing side. So we'll see. Okay, now it's telling us to stitch the seam allowances of the facing and lining. Stitch seam allowances of facing and lining to the jacket together at the neck edge between the large dots. So remember, we tucked in the collar. So we should have tucked in the collar at the top, and you have these neck, let me turn this around so you can see. So at the top, you tucked in your collar, and then you have those neck seam allowances along the neckline together. So you are now going to take those seam allowances, and you're going to basically, from the large dot, which is here, that same large dot that we've been dealing with, to the large dot that is on this side, you're going to literally stitch all of those seam allowances together. So I'm just going to use clips to clip the pieces together. And I'm literally clipping the seam allowance all along the neckline between those two large dots. I'm clipping them all together to make it easier. To sew them together. And interesting. All right, there we go. All right, we're working through it. We're working through it. Okay, so here's what it looks like. This is the seam allowance along the neckline. We are getting ready to stitch from the large dot on one side to the same large dot that we dealt with when we were working with the collar on the other side. So literally where my fingers are from here, my index fingers from here to here, we are stitching across just in the seam allowance. Again, you want to make sure, if you didn't already, that your collar is pushed all the way down. And let me turn you around so you can see. There we go. And you might need to pivot a little bit when you get around that what would be like the shoulder part. It can get a little bulky in that part, but it's going okay. All right, on the other side. And it's going smoothly. No problem so far. Last little piece. Oh, I'm going too far. All right, now we have stitched all the way across the neckline from side to side. Okay, now we have done that. So let's see. It is telling us to trim our seams. Let's see. Okay, and then it's also telling us to understitch. So it's saying understitch the lower front edge of the facing below the buttonhole marking, and underside of the lapel. Let's see. For 9 inches beginning at the upper edge. So it is telling us to understitch. Let me just show you the part that it is telling us to understitch. So it is saying, and let me see, I have my buttonholes marked on here. Which side is it on? Okay, here we go. So here is, you probably can't see it, but I have one. Where's my second buttonhole? Is this the second one or the first one? I have one. Let me mark it so you can see it better. Because I'm not going to do the buttonholes on, but I will be putting them. And here's one. Where's my other one? This is why it's good to keep your pattern pieces out, just in case if you need them, like I have needed them. I'm missing a piece. Front line. Isn't there two? Maybe there is only one buttonhole. Let's see. I thought there was two. No, it's only one. Okay. Well, one side by side. I thought it was one top or bottom. Okay. So here is my buttonhole. You can see it. I have it marked here. And then the other one should be right across from it because they're side by side. Oh, here it is. I'm like, where is my? Oh, it only shows me one. That's interesting. All right, well, we have one buttonhole, and that is what I've transferred on here. There is two, but you know what? One of them is probably aesthetic, and it's not an actual buttonhole. So there's really only one buttonhole on each side. So one button is, you're just going to put the button on, but there's not an actual hole. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so it's telling us to understitch the lower front edge of the facing below the buttonhole marking and the underside of the lapel for about 9 inches, beginning at the upper edge. So if you're looking, and it's easier for me to show you on the instructions than it is to show you on the actual fabric, but basically you will be understitching a section that is the bottom part of the facing all the way up to right below the buttonhole. And so it will be from this bottom all the way up to the buttonhole is what you'll be under, which it can be a little bit tricky to do it, especially since we have stitched across this bottom piece, because you need to, you need to basically open it up in order to be able to understitch it. And that's going to be a little bit tricky to do. With right sides together, pin the lower edges of the jacket and the lining together, matching the centers and the seams, which again, it's just now telling us to, and then stitch the seam, leaving an opening for turning. Okay, that makes sense. So basically the step that we're doing now is to make sure that the bottom part of the jacket, the seam lines up, that the seam, that you don't end up with the outside of the seam showing on the outside of the jacket showing up on the inside of the jacket showing up on the outside, if that makes sense. So that's like that kind of finishing step. You do, it also would be helpful to cut your seam allowance. I didn't cut my seam allowance yet. I will be. I'm just going to turn this one side just because I want to see how it looks. Actually, I'm going to turn the whole thing before, and I'm going to turn it back. I just want to see how it is looking. Because the other thing we need to do is connect the sleeves. Okay, so this is another good reason why it's good to do like a check, to turn it and do a check, because I can see there's this section right here where I can see where it's too tight and it didn't release it all the way. So I need to go back in and loosen up the stitch on that side. And I'm going to see what happened, if it did it. It does not look like it did it on this side, or yes, it does. So I need to do it on, I need to loosen it on both sides. And I'll show you what I mean. So it is right here. So this should be much smoother, the way that this is kind of connecting. So I need to go back in, and it's because it's too, I made the stitch, it's not, the stitch isn't loose enough to let it, basically to allow that, it's probably like too sharp of a turn. So I need to go back in and fix that on both sides so that it can like fully open it up. So that is a quick fix, but I'm glad I figured it out before I finished it. So that's one thing I do need to do. And now look at this. See, look how things work out. So one of the other reasons that I turn this is so that I can get a level of comfort for how this bottom part will fit together. And as Shamira said, when we turn this, it will automatically bring that line, that bottom up. And it did do that. Now, the only thing I did expect, which didn't happen, is I did expect for, and maybe that will happen when I finish because I didn't sew the whole thing across the bottom, but I did expect for some of the bottom part of this to be on the inside. And that still may happen, but I do feel better about stitching across the bottom, seeing how this is coming together. So a couple of things that we still need to do. I'm just, again, turning it just to get a feel for how it is going to look. And if I wasn't doing it live, this is something that I would normally do. In the process. So we're not quite done, but we have some parts to do. We're gonna get to a done part before we end the slide. But I just want to show you like what we have done so far, because we have done a lot, but we have some things we still need to do to get this fully like finished, which includes pressing it out. So that's another piece of it, which is why it's not all the way lined. So, okay, so what we're gonna do next steps, we're gonna fix the collar here, which is basically just kind of loosening that stitch so that this can fully come out. And then we are going to stitch along, we're gonna line the bottom, we're gonna turn it right side out, wrong side out. And we're gonna line the bottom and do a stitch across the bottom, leaving a opening in the center, and we're gonna pull the sleeves out of the center because we do need to connect the sleeves. So that is what we're going to do next. So three things we're gonna do. One is we're gonna fix this collar piece. I'm gonna talk you through that. Second, we're gonna stitch the bottom pieces together, but we gotta turn it back wrong side out. We're gonna stitch the bottom pieces together, and then we're gonna leave the center open so we can pull the sleeves through, and we're gonna attach the sleeves. That's the main big thing that we need to do. And we're gonna work on that. That is what we're going to do. We will not be doing the buttons on the, so there's a actual button, a real buttonhole that goes on each side. And then there is just a extra button that you're gonna stitch on, which won't have a hole, but it's more for aesthetic reasons. Okay. So now you have it back right side out. And we're going to go to this. So remember where we stitched it across the neckline? We are going to take those where we did the corners. And let me just fully take this out. And actually, let me just make sure. I just want to make sure that is the part. Yes, it's right here. So it's this part right here that we are going to loosen. So it is this little part right here. So this is where your lapel is. It's this part right here that we need to loosen. So I'm going to take my seam ripper and take that out. And I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. On both sides. Well, I'm going to look at it first. Then I'm going to figure out where I need to restitch that piece back. Let me see. And I'm just, again, taking out a couple of these stitches just so I can see what I need to do to release it, because it's like it's too tight, or I stitched too close, so it won't, it's just like bunched up. That's probably the best way for me to describe it. All right, let's try this. Let me just. All right, let's try it. Let me take a look at this. Nope, it still is bunched up in there. But it's better. So I probably have just one more stitch to take out, right? And this is the part where the collar and the lapel come together, where you're connecting those two pieces. That's what got bunched up. So what I'll say about making, blazers is that they're definitely, it's something that does take time, and and a little bit of patience, but I would say it is worth it. So for those that are doing it, hopefully the things that I'm doing now as you're going through the process make it a little bit easier for you. And if you run into any problem, even if it's a problem that I didn't run into, again, don't hesitate to reach out, because It's always easier when you could just ask, ask someone that may have had a similar experience. Okay, I feel like this is it. Yep, I think that is it. No, it's not. It still feels bunched up in there. All right, I'm going to take one more thing out. And the other thing too is that I'm going to actually not have us stitch the bottom piece up. But we are going to do the sleeves because we don't need to stitch the bottom to have the sleeves, to work on the sleeves. Because I want to spend some more time. Yes. Okay. So this is better. So let me just show you. And once I press it, it'll look so much better. But if you could see this is where the collar and the lapel come together. When I stitched them and pivoted like around this corner, it became like really bunched up, and I just released some of those. And I'm going to do a little bit more. But rather than do it on live, I want to show you how to connect the sleeves. And then we can I'll close up the bottom, which I'm going to talk you through how to do that piece. And I may even just post a separate video for that piece. Okay. So, and I still need to do the same thing on the other side, which is why I don't want to close up the bottom of it. But what I do want to do is talk about how to connect the sleeves. So your sleeves should be both on the inside. So if they're not, you want to push your sleeves through to the inside. And the steps that we're going through right now are going to be steps number. We're going to skip a little bit because we're going to go right to the sleeves. And they're going to be steps number 29. So we're going to go right to step number 29. So part of that is taking your sleeves, and you're going to push your sleeves through both your linings and your fabric sleeve, your outside sleeve should both be through. And so typically if I didn't have to go back in and make some adjustments, or not really adjustments, but kind of fix the stitching, loosen up the stitching around where the collar and the lapel meet, and then cut my seam allowance, we would typically stitch up the bottom of this. So to finish this, you would be basically taking the bottom, lining up the bottoms of your lining and your fabric, and you would stitch right across the bottom, leaving open a small section in the middle of your back so that you can pull your sleeves through. And that's also the way that you're going to turn your blazer or jacket or dress right side out. You would need to always leave this little piece open. And so, but before you stitch this close, you want to make sure that everything is basically done. So if you're going to do understitching, you want to make sure you do all your understitching first. You want to make sure that you at least turn it right side out one time to make sure that it looks the way you want it to look. do you need to go back in and make any adjustments to the stitching? Like I have to do a right around this area because it's like bunching up in this area. So I have to go back in and just like loosen it up a little bit. And sometimes it helps to also press it because that will make some things that might be bunched up lay down flat. So I want to take some time and do those things before I stitch up the bottom. But we don't have to stitch up the bottom in order to finish the sleeves. So we are going to finish the sleeves. But you do want to make sure that the majority of things are done because part of finishing up the sleeves is connecting them. And so when you connect those sleeves, that's just another part of the jacket that is going to be fully connected. And if you find like, oh my goodness, I need to take something apart, you may have to end up taking your sleeve, you know, what you connect in your sleeves apart as well. So it does need to be connecting the sleeves does need to be one of your like last and final steps that you're doing. Okay. So with that said, we are going to step 29, which is putting the sleeves together, connecting the sleeves, and it's telling us to, pull the sleeves through that hole that you would technically have left open at the bottom had you stitched the entire lining and facing to the actual fabric. You would leave a little hole and then you would pull both the sleeves through that hole. And so that's where we're at. We're pulling our sleeves. We're working with our sleeves through basically the bottom of the jacket or the blazer or dress, depending on what you're making. So it says pull your sleeves through the opening in the lower edge of the jacket, having the wrong sides out. Oh, so is it having us turn our jacket right side out? It is. Okay, it is making us turn our jacket right side out. Let me make sure we can do this before. Turn the jacket right side out. I think we can. Having wrong sides out. Separating jacket. I think we can work on the sleeve. Let me think about that. All right, I'm going to do one sleeve just to show you the sleeve. That way, at least you know that step. Because again, I don't want to have everyone sit on live while I fix this top part because I'm such a type A person. I'm going to really like work on this for a minute before I close the jacket up and press it out really good, which is what you should technically do as you're trying to figure out like, okay, what adjustments or what changes do I need to make? And you need to do those things before you would want to do them before you close up the bottom of the jacket. Just because then you might end up having to take it out. I don't think I'm gonna have to take it out, but I do need to press it and play around with it a little bit just so I can see how it all is, gonna come together. And I want to cut my seam allowances too. So you're gonna now turn your jacket. You're gonna turn your jacket right side out, but you're gonna make your sleeves. You're gonna pull your sleeves wrong to the inside, and you're going to pull them through the middle, both. So basically the opposite of what I just stated before. So you're going to have your jacket right side out, but your sleeves are going to be pulled out through the bottom part of the jacket. So both the linings and the actual sleeves. So you're going to pull them to the inside. And we're going to do one sleeve together just so you know how to do or so we walk through one sleeve. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to probably post a separate video with what some of the finishing things that I do after I work through it. That way, we're not working through it all through live, which might be another hour. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to talk about the final steps, but before we get to that, we're going to put one of these sleeves together. So again, let me just remind you, you have turned your jacket right side out, and you put your sleeves, push them to the inside. So you're working from the bottom of your jacket, and you have both of your sleeves, which are now on the wrong side. So that brings us to step 29, which is basically telling us to pull our sleeves out through the bottom opening, having your sleeves wrong sides out. So again, at the bottom, wrong sides out. And then it says separating the jacket sleeve from the lining sleeve. With the right sides together, you're going to pin the upper sleeve extension to the lining, matching the dots, and then you're going to stitch between those dots. So you have here's your jacket piece, and here is your lining piece, and you're going to be making those pieces face each other, right sides facing each other. So let me just, so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so here is your jacket piece. So it says, with right sides together, pin the upper sleeve extension to the lining. So this is that upper sleeve. And here's your lining. Now this is the part that's a little bit tricky, which is how, we did those pieces are kind of turned. So I guess, let me see. I don't know if we turn those out too. Let me see if they turn them out. They do. Okay, so they have them turned out like this as well. And it says we are matching right sides to this to the right sides. And I think, and let me just, because this doesn't give you a really good picture, but it does tell you. Let me just line it up and then I can show you. I just want to make sure this does fit. I believe this goes just like this, and I'm going to use pins because it'll be easier to show you. Every time I do this, this is probably the third blazer I've made. And so while everything feels, familiar, there's a lot of kind of trust the process moments as you're working on these blazers. And I definitely feel like if you like blazers, you should do it more often, because doing it, I think, helps you to get comfortable with the steps of it. For sure, 100%. Let me see, so just to give you an idea, the last blazer that I made like a year ago. So if that gives you any idea of like how, so me trying to like, oh, this feels familiar, it's because it's been a year. I literally made that last blazer probably around this time last year. So in essence, like when you are pinning this together, and I'm going to show it to you too, you're kind of making like a loop, if that makes sense. The only thing I will say that you do have to make sure that you do is that you don't want to have it twisted. So you want to make sure that the sleeve is straight and it's not twisted, and then this sleeve is also straight and not twisted. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing as well. But I'm just trying to also remember things as I come across them, or as I think about them. I think that is right. Thank y'all for hanging in there. This is definitely not as methodical as I usually am. Let's see. You said, oh, you so slow. So do I. I definitely do too. Hi Dee. Welcome. Let me see. And thank you so much, Coco Drop. I appreciate all of the hearts and the light and the roses. I appreciate that. Okay. Now I'm just going to do one more check to make sure that I do have this on pinned on correctly. Yeah, I'm going to make myself like a little promise to make another blazer. Probably even this blazer, believe it or not. Because I feel like it will be so much easier if I made them more often than I do. Let me see. Oh shit, you said I gotta trim really close. I need to get in there and trim. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get in there and trim all around those edges. I haven't trimmed any of the seam allowances around the neck and the lapel, and that could be the other reason why it's like really bunching up a lot too. That could definitely be part of it. Okay, let's see. So you said what pattern is this? This is Simplicity. So this is for those that aren't may have joined a little bit later. This is Simplicity 9825, and we're doing view B. Actually, we're doing view A with the pockets, but I have taken some parts of view B because I'm using like multiple different fabrics. Let's see. Okay. Let me see. Okay, here we go. All right, so I think I have all the pieces. I think I have them all attached. I think I do. So ultimately what you're doing is you are right sides together. You are basically creating a loop by taking the right side, and I think I can show you probably easier. I thought I could show you with it together, but it might be easier to show you with the other sleeve. If I can find, oh, here we go. Here's the other sleeve. I can turn it inside out. So basically you're taking this sleeve, you're opening it completely, even turning out turning out those little corners, those miter corners, or I don't know what we call them, but those little corners that we created with the actual fabric itself, you're going to turn them completely out. And then you're going to take your fabric and you are going to take the right side, so the insides of them, which is the right side, and you're going to line it up exactly the same. You're going to take, because this should be pretty much a duplicate of your lining should be pretty much a duplicate, and you're going to take that inside of that and you're going to take the inside of it. Oh my goodness, no. You're going to take the inside or the right side of it and you're going to line it up to the right side and you're going to pin it. And you're going to do that all the way around until your complete lining is completely connected to your fabric. Now the part that is a little bit tricky, so I'll just show you this piece, and it's easier to show you with the fabric, is because we had those mitered corners, it looks like we are taking, so where this, see where these corners are like already turned, it's not, you know, you think it doesn't line up perfectly. You are basically taking your fabric and you're fitting it into that corner is basically what you're fitting it into. So you're pinning it. Let me just show you. I'm just going to show you just one side. Yeah, here we go. And it might be easier for me just to show it to you on the pattern, but I'm going to show you both. So here is that corner. And again, it's mitered corner, but you're taking the lining and you're just like fitting it into that corner, lining it up with the raw edges. And then you'll just take the rest of it and you'll line it around. And then your seams should line up. And again, it's right side to right side. And then once you do that, once you have those right side to right side all lined up, again, the key pieces are to make sure that it's not twisted when you're lining it, that it's not twisted. And again, you're doing right side to right side. So you're basically making a loop. And I have to make sure that this one isn't twisted because I feel like it is. So I might have to take this one apart because I feel like, see how it's twisted? So you got to make sure that it's not twisted when you are putting them together. But once you have it lined up, then you are basically going to do a stitch around. And again, you're just stitching just those two pieces, right sides facing that you have lined up. And I'm going to do it on the other side just so you could see, because this side is twisted, so I do need to redo it. So see, it was twisted, so I have to do this side again. But I am going to stitch this side. And I'm just going to make one change to this. I just want to lower this a little bit. And then I want to show you this so then you know, yes, here we go. Okay, that's perfect. What it will look like from the other side. And then also, let me just show you this really quickly as well. So you can see how it fits in there. So, and I'm gonna show it on both screens, but basically this is this outer part is your fabric, your outside fabric. This inner part is your lining. And so you could see how the outside, it's folded down already. It has that kind of miter corner and it's folded down. You're not gonna push the lining in there. You're just gonna connect it, again, right sides together, but right to the bottom of that already folded piece. So same thing, let me just show you on this side. Basically, what you see right here is your finished sleeve on the wrong side. You're going to take your lining piece and you're just going to connect it right sides together still, but right at that finish. You don't have to like push it down into the folded down piece. You're just going to connect it right at that part. So I just want to show you that piece. And it should fit together. And I'm just making sure that this does. That I did do that for this piece. And it looks like it is. And it's a little tricky. You may have to play around with it a little bit, but that's pretty much how you're doing. You're pulling those sleeves through the bottom opening of your jacket. They should be wrong side facing out. You want to create this loop, making sure that you don't have any twist in your fabric. And then you are going to put them together, again, right sides facing all the way around. And then you are going to literally stitch all the way around. You're going to stitch it. And I'm just making sure that I have all my pieces, which I feel like I have one. Yeah, I think that is good. All right. I'm going to stitch this together and then I'm going to pull it through the other side so that you can see what it looks like. And then you would literally do the same thing on the other side. All right, here we go. I think we're good to go. And you just want to take your time, make sure that you don't have any, bunching underneath. And I'm going to, just because this is a little tricky, I'm also like lifting it out and putting it back underneath because it's easier for me to do that than pivot. Almost done, I think. Okay, and let's see. Do the same thing on the other side. just have this other little piece. Okay, here we go. I'm feeling really good about it. It is coming together. And okay. And now I'm gonna go do a little bit more, and then I'm gonna pivot one more time and do this little corner. And this last little piece. And I think we are good to go. All right. And now I am going to take this, fingers crossed, and I'm going to pull the sleeve back through. And so when you connect it that way, it does a couple of things. One, you have and again, you have to press this out, but you have a completely like finished sleeve. And I'm just going to show you. And it still has to be pressed out, but you will get the idea of what it is looking like. But basically, you could see this. You can see how it all just kind of comes together. I still have to press it, but you get a feel for how it like fits in that little corner. Same thing is true on this side. If I can get it out, I gotta pull it out. But once I like press it, it will all kind of just fit in there neatly. The inside is all finished. Same thing. Let me just show you how I still have to press it and kind of point out the edges, but it's all like finished. And I still see like a little piece right here where I didn't connect it, but I can go back in there and connect that piece. And then it also pulls your sleeve completely in on this side. So this is your finished. Let me see, do I have any? Can I put my arm? Oh, through this side. So yeah, it basically finishes your sleeve on the side. So I still again have to press it out, but you get the gist of how. And there is a button that does go on this sleeve part as well. So, but you need to, once you finish your sleeve, then you will be able to kind of put that button in there. But that is pretty much how you put your, hey, Tydree, hi, Grown and Opinionated, welcome. But that is basically how you attach your sleeve. So again, just as a recap, you are going to have your jacket right side out. You are going to pull your sleeves through by pulling them out through the bottom piece. You're going to pull them through, and then where is mine? Okay, here you go. Once you pull your sleeves through the bottom, you're going to pull your lining out as well as your fabric piece out. You want to make sure that you completely for those like corners that we had created when we put the fabric pieces together. You want to completely flip those out as well. Then you're going to make sure that you do not have your fabric twisted, because if you sew it together twisted, then it's going to be twisted on your in your arm when you put the jacket back together. And then you are going to take the right side, which is going to be the inside of this, and again, making sure that it's not twisted. So it'll be important for you to really take a look at it, make sure it's not, that they're both like the easiest way to do is make sure your seams are both facing the right direction. And then you can always look at it also to make sure it's not twisted, because you can see that it's twisted or not. And then you're going to start lining up. Again, you can line up the seams, and you're going to line them up right sides to right side. So you're literally going to create like a loop. And again, you want to make sure that's not twisted when you are creating. And then you're going to pin it all the way around. And then you're going to stitch it. And you're going to stitch all the way around. If you can do it in one continuous stitch, that's fine. I wasn't able to do that. I just did like a stitch here, and then I lifted my needle, pivoted, and then, but you want to make sure that the entire piece is covered. So you do need to pick up where you left off if you don't do one continuous stitch. So that is how you put the sleeves together. And then once they're done, you will be able to pull them out through the right side. And then the last step that you do need to do is, if you have stitched the bottom, you will have that opening that you use to pull your sleeves through. You will need to either use some fusing tape, or you will need to use, or you will need to hand baste or do a blind hem or something to close that hole. So with that, those are all of the steps that you need to kind of fully construct the blazer. The only other things that you will need to do is put your buttons on. And there is a button on each sleeve that you need to put on. And that actually does have a actual, there's 2 buttons on each sleeve, and they do have an actual 2 buttonholes. And those are your very last steps that you would do. And then there is 2 buttons in the, on the front of the blazer. One has a button there. So there's a buttonhole. You know what? There's a buttonhole on each side. So basically you put a buttonhole, there's a buttonhole on the right side and the left side. And then there is a button on the right side and the left side. And so that basically just allows for you to have 2 buttons. And so that is the last step, which is to do your buttons. Those are the last things that you do, which we're not going to do on live, but I will probably post a video if I don't already have one. I feel like I have a video doing buttons, but if I don't, I will post a separate video for those that do plan to do an actual button with your, if you have a dress, then you will definitely want to do a button. If you have a blazer, you will want to do the button. But if you have a jacket, you may forgo the button. And I think that is it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, when we wrap up the live, I am going to do all of my finishing touches, and then I will post some pictures of the blazer, jacket, dress, depending on what it is and how long it is when I finish it. When I do all my finishing touches, what I need to do is I want to relook at the collar and the lapel again, just to look at the stitching there, cut all my seam allowances, press it out really good, and then close it up. And then I'm going to be finished. So I plan to work on that this evening and wrap up. And then, like I said, before the weekend is over, my plan is to post some pictures of the blazer so that you will get to see it. And then I might do a post or a video just kind of walking through some of the things that I thought were a little bit difficult in this final step of putting all the pieces together. So with that, thank you so much for joining for all 4 parts of this. Thank you, Miss Tata. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you for hanging in there, especially since we got on a little bit later today. I appreciate that as well. If you do make this blazer, again, please tag me in it. If you have questions as you get to the different parts of the blazer, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, RVBs. I appreciate you joining. And I will see you all next Friday. Next Friday, let me show you what we're working on. Something, this is probably a palette cleanser compared to what we have been working on. I'm just so proud of everybody who is working on this blazer, including myself. I'm proud of myself too for working through it. But next week, we are going to be doing the top. So we're going to do McCall's 7757 over the next 2 weeks. If you are going to Frocktails, this is a great Frocktails outfit. I will definitely be wearing mine in Frocktails. You have a couple of different views. So we'll be spending one live working on the top, which we should be able to go through it really quickly. And then we will do one live working on the bottom. So the next 2 lives, May 24th, May 31st, we will be doing the top and the bottom. And I hope that I see you all there. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And good night. Thank you again. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Marilyn. Good night.